So, good morning to all. Welcome to iTalk, the talk show which is organized by the MM Joshi Eye Institute Group of Hospitals. This is to create awareness about the various eye conditions and the remedial measures among the public. As you know, we doctors find that a lot of the eye diseases actually become more problematic, mostly because of the lack of awareness about the eye conditions proper and their prevention, their treatment. And this lack of awareness sometimes leads to more problems because either the patients are not really having the knowledge or they have wrong concepts or myths about these eye conditions. I think this eye talk is basically directed towards disseminating the useful information, the most valid information from the experts to the public so that they can actually preserve and maintain their eye health. I think I cannot overemphasize the importance of vision. I think vision means good quality of life. If there is no vision, if there is blindness, I think it's a great suffering and a great dependence. And we know that many kinds of blindness, many types of blindness that we actually see in our practice, actually are preventable. Actually, there is no need for that person to have this blindness, but the person actually has it. So these blindness, which actually are preventable, or actually there is no need for them in the first place, we call them as needless blindness. So there are many causes of needless blindness. And today we are going to discuss a very important cause of needless blindness, that is a blindness due to diabetes, or what we call as a diabetic blindness, or it's a special type of blindness that is most commonly found in diabetic patients due to their systemic problem of diabetes mellitus, or what we call as the sugar complaint. I think to address this most important problem, to preserve vision in a diabetic patient, we have none other than the authority in the diabetes treatment, that is diabetic retinopathy treatment, and he is the probably the most well-known vitreoretinal surgeon of the country, Dr. A.S. Guruprasad, who is heading the Department of Retinal Services at MM Joshi Eye Institute Group of Hospitals, and he's stationed at Hubli. So he's got an extensive experience of more than 35 years in treating various retina conditions, retinal diseases, and especially he is an authority on the diabetic retinopathy, the retinopathy which leads to blindness in a diabetic patient. And so we welcome you, sir, Dr. Guru Prasad, for this high talk. Thank you very much for joining on this high talk.
Thank you very much.
So I think without much delay, we will actually go right into the discussion. Dr. Guru Prasad, we know there are diabetes is a very common problem. There are many diabetic patients. Almost in India, as of now, 1 in every 4 adults has a potential to become a diabetic, is already a diabetic. So that is the magnitude of the problem. So it is a well-known condition. Everybody knows what diabetes is. But as there is a darkness under the land, there are many things which are hidden, but the patient actually does not know it. So what we would like to know from you is, how is eye affected in diabetes? People who are diabetics, how is their eye or their eyesight or vision is threatened by diabetes?
Thank you, Dr. Krishna Prasad, for this opportunity. Wish you all a very happy New Year. I will begin with this answer to the question which Dr. Krishna Prasad has posed about how diabetes can cause vision loss or how it can lead to problems in the eye. Diabetes, we should understand that diabetes is a disease which causes malfunction of multi organs, that is, multiple organs in the body. It may be the brain, it may be the heart, it may be the eye, it may be the kidney, it may be the foot. Basically, vessels in the body, wherever they are, wherever they cause flow of blood, can get affected by diabetes, and that is why diabetes is a multi-system disorder. It causes multi-system involvement, and the eye is no exception, because the eye also has blood vessels flowing every tissue, especially in the retina. Is there some disturbance, Krishna Prasad?
Now it's okay, sir. You can continue.
Okay. So basically, we should understand the problems to diabetes in the eye.
Okay, sir.
It can cause simple problems not related to blood flow, like, for example, can cause cataract at a younger age. Normally, cataract occurs at the age of 60 and above in the Indian population. But in the diabetic population, it can occur even at 40, 45 years of age. So patients or people tend to get cataract at an earlier age if they are diabetic. That is number one. The most important problem that diabetes causes to the eye is perhaps the diabetic retinopathy, about which we are going to discuss in detail in this particular program, where the blood vessels of the retina, see, retina basically means, if I can share my screen, I'll show you what retina means. Here I go. So this is retina. If the eye is imagined to be like a lemon, and if you cut the lemon across, what you see at the back of the lemon or back of the eye is the retina, or the blood vessels, the streaks of blood vessels that you see on the picture on the left is a schematic drawing of the retina. And on the right, what you see on the slide is actually the real retina as seen with an ophthalmoscope. So these are the blood vessels which, over a period of time, in a diabetic patient, for example, a patient of diabetes who has diabetes for about 5 to 10 years, can develop changes in these blood vessels in the form of either blockages or leakages. This in turn can lead to dysfunction of the retina and can lead to poor vision. So the patient suffers from partial blindness to begin with and complete blindness later on as the disease progresses. Apart from these two, that is cataract and diabetic retinopathy, diabetes can also cause, um, 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 because of the blood flow being reduced to the other parts of the eye, for example, the muscles of the eye, the nerves of the eye, it can lead to vision loss by causing paralysis of the muscles, what we call as diabetic monoplegia, or particular muscles of the eye can get affected by paralysis, and this in turn can lead to double vision. Patients' eye do not move in tandem. Normally there is a parallelism between the two eyes, and whenever one eye moves to the right, the left also follows. This is an example. In a diabetic patient, because of this paralysis of one of the muscles or multiple muscles for that matter, it can lead to double vision which the patient experiences. Fortunately, all these are self-limiting and tend to get cured if the diabetes is brought under control. Another thing is the anterior ischemic optic neuropathy, in technical terms, what we call as the AION, is nothing but the lack of blood supply to the optic nerve itself. So normally the retina has photoreceptors, a million of them, on which the image of the object that we see falls, and this is picked up or received by the photoreceptors called rods and cones, and these rods and cones are connected to the optic nerve by a very intricate system of nerves within the retina, which is processed and conveyed to the brain through the optic nerve in the form of electrical impulses. And only in the brain, it is actually again translated into the normal image. The optic nerve is thus very important in this conduction of impulses, which can get ischemic, or because of a lack of blood supply caused by diabetes, it can suffer damage, and this again can lead to vision loss. So these are, in short, the various changes that occur in a diabetic patient. Dr. KP?
Yes, sir. I think a very useful information. So what to reiterate what Dr. Gupta just alluded. So diabetes is actually a problem which affects every part of the body from head to toe. That is the most important thing every diabetic should know. It is not just a problem of blood sugar levels. It's a problem where every part of the body is, and it is the blood vessels, the flow of blood in the body which gets affected. And there are many organs which get affected, and eye is one of them. And what Dr. Guru Prasad said is, it is the only place in the body where we actually can see blood vessels. He even showed a picture of the retina in which the blood vessels can be seen, the blood circulation can be seen live in a patient. So diabetes affects blood flow and the circulation, and the eye, we can actually see it, and there are many problems in the eye, not only the problem in the retina, even a cataract or a nerve palsy or a paralysis, and even an optic nerve problem, which all can lead to various eye problems and things like that. So I would like to know, like once a patient develops diabetes, you showed a retina in which the blood vessels can be seen. You said that is the most important part which receives the light and the information in the form of images. It's like a camera, you said. So what are the changes that happen in the retina over a period of time? If somebody becomes a diabetic today, obviously his retina will be normal. But as the time passes, like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, what happens to the retina, and why this diabetic retinopathy, and what is the actual changes in the retina which you can see with the patients can't know by themselves? So can you probably elaborate on the changes in the retina as the stages of diabetic retinopathy?
Yeah, this is important to know. I will again use my slides here because that will make it easy to understand. So what happens in diabetic patients is, as I said, in a patient, for example, if he suffers from diabetic retinopathy, he will have, to begin with, in the early stages, he will have one minute. Yeah. Is my slide visible? So what I want you to see here on this slide is that this is the normal optic nerve head. These are the blood vessels of the retina. The thicker ones are the veins and the thinner ones are the arteries. And this central point, which is actually not a very significant point on examination, but actually the most important point in terms of sensitivity. This is called the macula. Here is where the image of the object that we see is perceived, is cast, and from there it is processed and transmitted to the brain in the form of electrical impulses. So, in the question that you asked was, what are the changes that occur in diabetes? So here you can see some red dots. As diabetes progresses, say for about 5 to 10 years, these changes start to develop. These are nothing but enlarged blood vessels of the capillaries. Capillaries are nothing but the unit of blood supply of every organ of the body. These are the something like the highways. These are the smaller, once it bifurcates, these are the smaller roads, if I may use that analogy. And the capillaries, which are not seen here very clearly, in fact, they cannot be seen with the naked eye. They're just about 5 microns in size. They are the ones which actually help in transfer of oxygen, exchange of oxygen and nutrients between the blood and the cells. So these capillaries are extremely small and they undergo damage. And because of damage, they undergo outpouchings, or something like a balloon that has got weakened over time and gets swollen. These capillaries also get swollen, and what you see here as red dots are nothing but swollen capillaries. These can rupture and result. These can rupture and result in hemorrhages. By hemorrhages, I mean, one moment. These are the hemorrhages that I was talking about. The microaneurysms that we have in the beginning can later on become larger because the hemorrhages that occur by the rupture of these microaneurysms. And these red spots are clearly visible to the ophthalmologist when he examines the fundus or the retina in a diabetic patient. To begin with, these are the changes. Later on, there are some other changes that you see, these yellow dots that have appeared. These are nothing but the lipoproteinaceous material, or the cholesterol, you can say in simple words, cholesterol content of the blood that gets deposited in the macular area. As I said, the macula is the most important part of the retina, which is the most sensitive part of the retina, where the image of the object that we see is cast. If changes of hemorrhages and accumulation of lipoproteinaceous material or lipids happens in this area, you can imagine that the patient will have a lot of vision loss. So this is the next change that occurs over a period of time, say about 6 to 8 years after the onset of diabetes. You can expect these changes to be seen in many patients. And you can see in the next stage, say a year later or a couple of years later, the bigger hemorrhages tend to start. The, the hemorrhages that you see here are much, much bigger than what I showed you in the earlier slides. And later on, you can see that there are some changes in the vessels themselves. The vessels tend to enlarge to enormous sizes. And as you can imagine, these can result in rupture and hemorrhage. And when they rupture, they cause severe hemorrhage. And you can see here, there are some changes occurring in the retina. There's a network of blood vessels here. This is definitely not normal. I showed you the normal retina, which had the veins, the arteries, and the tributaries of these veins and the branches of the arteries. But this I did not show in the normal retina. This is definitely abnormal that occurs in a diabetic patient. And this is a result of blockage of blood supply to the retina. The body sort of reacts to this blockage, reacts to this suffocation that it is experiencing, and there's a reparative mechanism, as it were, from the part of the body to develop these new blood vessels or the network of blood vessels that you see here. Unfortunately, this network of blood vessels is not normal. Does not serve a useful purpose. On the contrary, it is dangerous because these are very fragile and can rupture easily. A little strain on the part of the patient, a little fast walking, sudden bending, even coughing, sneezing, vomiting, bouts of vomiting, or even an elderly patient who is constipated, if he tries too hard on the commode, he can have an increased pressure in the head and neck area and cause rupture of these network of blood vessels, causing a major hemorrhage. And what I mean by major hemorrhage is what I'm going to show you next in the next slide. This is the major hemorrhage. So when the new vascularization or the network of blood vessels that I showed you ruptures, it results in a major hemorrhage. But what I want to stress upon here is that in spite of all these changes happening in the eye, the vision may not be affected at all. That is the sorry state of affairs, or the sad part about diabetic retinopathy. This is actually a late stage of diabetic retinopathy, but the vision can be normal even at this stage. In fact, this patient is going to go blind by a severe hemorrhage like this, right in the front, right in front of the macula, covering the center of the eye, the most sensitive part of the retina, or it could even disperse into the entire vitreous cavity. The cavity, eyeball is like a cavity. The blood can bleed into the entire vitreous cavity, clouding the media, resulting in severe loss of vision. And this is a stage where treatment can be very difficult. So until this stage occurs, until the rupture of the blood vessels occurs, patient can have a normal vision. That is why a patient who is diabetic must go to the doctor repeatedly in order to find out whether he has any of these precursors of hemorrhage, which can later on lead to severe vision loss. KP sir.
Yes, sir. So actually, it's quite frightening to know that so many changes can happen in the retina of the patient who is totally, ignorant of the changes that are happening. And he's a diabetic, and probably he's only worried about his blood sugar control. And you have probably shown that what all things happen there. I will just ask you two, three rapid fire questions. I just want a single sentence answer. So, do you think patients can have normal vision even though there are advanced changes in the retina?
Yes, that is exactly what I said.
Because normally it is the patients normally come to the doctor when there is a problem in the vision. So that means a patient, we always thought a diabetic patient will approach an eye specialist only when he finds a problem with his vision. But what you are telling me, the vision can be absolutely normal. Still, the changes in the eye can be happening at this much proportion.
Yeah.
That is what you want to say?
Exactly. So there's a major role to play on the part of the physicians, surgeons, all the diabetic care, healthcare workers who actually treat diabetic patients. They have a major role to play in causing awareness, creating awareness amongst the general public that blood sugar control is not all. They have to also know about what complications they can have in the body, what complications they can have in the eye, and that they can have blindness if they don't uh, uh, care for the complications, and if they care only for the blood sugar control. So blood sugar control is not all. We have seen, unfortunately, that many experienced healthcare workers would be treating the patient for long years just to control the diabetes, but would not have mentioned to the patient about the need for the picking up of the complications by a specialist. An eye examination, I think, is very, very important. The moment the patient is found to be diabetic, he has to go to an ophthalmologist for an eye examination, because one thing, diabetes can be very, very asymptomatic. Diabetes, people say, how should I know I'm diabetic? Because I don't have any symptoms of diabetes. The classical symptoms of diabetes are polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, all that. The increased hunger, increased thirst, and increased urination at night. These are the classical symptoms of diabetes, but many patients don't actually have this. And without these symptoms, they would not even suspect that they are diabetic, but actually they would be diabetic. So we do not know how long they would be diabetic, and therefore the first time that they are diagnosed to be diabetic, they have to go to an eye specialist to get their eyes examined, because at that stage itself, the time of diagnosis itself, they might be having changes in the eye which need follow-up and treatment.
You mean diabetic retinopathy can be a time bomb in the eye, right? You don't know when it's going to explode. The patient can be completely unaware.
Correct. The network of blood vessels that I showed on the slide is just like a time bomb. We do not know when it is going to explode. It is there, it is ticking. Anytime it can just blow, and that can cause a major hemorrhage. And treatment at that stage becomes difficult compared to the treatment when we pick it up at an earlier stage.
So what I actually collect from your discussion is, sir, that the bleeding in the eye is the cause of sudden loss of vision in a diabetic patient, the diabetic retinopathy. And this run up for this bleed, for this event, for this catastrophe can be completely without warning. So any diabetic patient, it's a hanging sword on his head that he can actually have a bleed unless it has been seen by an eye specialist. And just a diabetic control, having a good diabetic control is not an insurance against changes in the eye. So probably just because your diabetes is well controlled, a lot of people will say that I've been a very well controlled diabetic for 25 years. But despite that fact, his retinopathy can be progressing, which he may not come to know. It can be completely without any warning. And his diabetic doctor, his physician may not come to know. It is only an eye specialist who can see into the eye and see what stage of retinopathy is it. So now I want to ask a very important question. I think there are already questions about that in the thing. There are a lot of patients who are already diabetic. You said there are many people now in the society. Now they raise a very pertinent question. Like if I am diabetic and I want to save my eyesight from being lost due to diabetic retinopathy, is it possible? Is it possible to save my vision? Like if I come to you regularly and follow all the instructions, can you give a guarantee that you're going to save my eyesight for my lifetime?
Yeah. So diabetic retinopathy is just one of the complications that happens in a diabetic patient. There can be other complications in the form of, vascular occlusion, something like a heart attack in the heart or a stroke in the brain. You can also have a stroke in the eye, which is sometimes not related to diabetes, or some can be related to diabetes, or I can say it is more common in diabetes. So this is what I mean by this is the main blood supply, the highway, it gets blocked. The highway to the flow of blood gets blocked, and the central retinal artery is one of the complications of age and diabetes both. So if assuming that this does not happen, assuming that this highway does not get blocked in a diabetic patient, assuming that this stroke in the eye does not happen, diabetic retinopathy is totally complications of loss of vision due to diabetic retinopathy is totally preventable.
Okay.
And if the patient can come to the doctor as and when he's asked to follow up, there is definite guarantee that he will have useful vision for the rest of his life.
So that's very reassuring, sir. Now I would like to ask you the same question. You said if you come to us regularly as advised. So what is the advice? What is the follow-up schedule for a diabetic? Let us say a patient is newly diagnosed diabetic or is in the early phases of his diabetes mellitus. So what is the follow-up schedule you normally advise? And the patient can themselves think of it, or you advise the schedule? What is it? How does it work?
So as I already said, the first time the patient is diagnosed to have diabetes is the time when he should visit an ophthalmologist, because as I said, the reason is that he would not know how many years he would have been diabetic. So that is the reason why he should get examined the first time. After, if assuming that the fundus is normal or the retina is normal at that point of time, I think once a year examination is mandatory because uh, although changes do not really the need do not really progress very fast, there are certain risk factors these diabetic patients have. For example, if a diabetic patient may have increased blood pressure as well. A diabetic patient may also have, say, for example, hyperlipidemia or lipid imbalance or cholesterol, increase in the cholesterol, or a pregnant woman, for example, who, because of hormonal changes, tends to have a progression of diabetic retinopathy which is faster. So unless these risk factors are there, I think once a year examination is fairly safe. The patient has to compulsorily go to the ophthalmologist for a yearly fundoscopy. And if the changes start developing, as and when the changes start developing, I showed you some pictures of small hemorrhages and big hemorrhages and the real massive hemorrhages. So when there are small hemorrhages, I think the frequency increases to 6 monthly. And when the bigger hemorrhages occur, the frequency increases to fourth monthly. And if there is a large hemorrhage, then it is time to treat immediately. In fact, at the stage of neovascularization, that is the stage when the network of blood vessels is seen, or when the stage when the time bomb is picked up or detected, that is the time to give immediate treatment. And there are different forms of treatment. I think we can discuss that in the course of this talk.
Okay, sir. I think so. It's very important that the schedule has to be fixed by the ophthalmologist, depending upon the situation, depending upon the age of diabetes, depending upon the control, and also on the special situations like pregnancy, you said. And it also basically depends on the stage of diabetes that you are diagnosed with. If there is no diabetic retinopathy at all, then how frequently the patient should come?
Yeah, as I said, once a year is more than enough. A little over 1 year also is acceptable, but he should have that awareness always in the back of his mind that he has a propensity or a predilection or a vulnerability to develop problems in the eye for which he needs care of an ophthalmologist. And if that is there, that awareness is there, I think he will come once a year.
Okay. So you said the bleeding is one of the causes of loss of vision. Is there any other reason why blindness can happen in a diabetic retinopathy other than bleeding?
Yes. In fact, the more common in the present day, because nowadays awareness is increasing, bleeding is a little rare in the sense that compared to the past, patients come to us much earlier and we are able to pick up the diagnosis much earlier than before bleeding occurs. The other aspect of loss of vision, or other aspect of diabetic retinopathy which causes loss of vision, is called diabetic macular edema. What happens, as I said already, there is damage to the blood vessels in diabetic patients. There is weakness of the blood vessels resulting in ballooning, and then rupture of these blood vessels resulting in hemorrhages, and there is a network formation, and this network is not good. It is vulnerable. It is very fragile. It can bleed. This is one aspect. The other aspect is something like a garden pipe. If you imagine the capillaries of the eye, capillaries of the retina, to a pipe in the garden, left in the sun, left in the rain, left in the wind, it over a period of years, it becomes brittle, it becomes hard, brittle, and it can break and cause leakages. Similarly, in a diabetic patient, the capillaries of the macula, as I said, is the most sensitive part of the retina in the center. The capillaries at the macula can become leaky, they can malfunction. They normally cannot hold blood. There can be leakage of fluid initially. There can be leakage of cholesterol later. There can be actual leakage of blood in the further later stages. So this is known as diabetic macular edema or diabetic maculopathy, which is a major cause of loss of reading vision for the patient. Patient of diabetes who is not able to read is always because of diabetic macular edema or diabetic maculopathy, which is an aspect of diabetic retinopathy other than bleeding. In fact, at any stage of diabetic retinopathy, patient can have diabetic macular edema, and this needs special treatment. So this is one aspect, diabetic macular edema affecting only the center, and bleeding from diabetes affecting usually the mid periphery or the little larger, away from the center. So these are the two aspects which cause loss of vision in a diabetic patient.
Okay. So we learned that there's a total loss of vision due to a bleed that happens in the eye, or the central part of the retina becomes, gets swollen. What is, I guess, maculopathy, in which the central vision or the reading vision is lost. So if the patient is already developed a diabetic retinopathy, let us say he is likely to bleed. You have found some risk factors for bleeding. Okay. So how will you manage this patient? Or if the patient also has a swelling, as you said, maculopathy. So once you have found that the patient may not have vision loss, but the patient has been detected to have retinopathy. See, what are the different things that you have in your, armamentarium to treat a patient by preventing him going into complete vision loss?
Right. So I think we are coming to the treatment aspect of the problem of diabetic retinopathy. Uh, Although diabetic macular edema and diabetic and the proliferative diabetic retinopathy or the leaky blood vessels which are bleeding are two different aspects. There can be an overlap in most of the patients. The common scenario is that the patient will have an overlap or a combination of both of these, and the treatment is usually directed towards both of these problems. Assuming that the patient only has leaky blood vessels in the center of the macula or diabetic macular edema, until 2005, we were applying laser treatment in order to sort of stop the leakages of these damaged blood vessels and prevent the macular edema or leakage of blood vessels. But today we have very good drugs. We have drugs in the form of injections. I think I will show you in the form of slides using the PowerPoint. So, before 2005, this is what we are doing. This is the macular area, and we were able to sort of, to some extent, stop the leakage of blood supply, leakage of blood from these vessels. I'm sorry, this is going somewhere. Just give me half a minute. Sorry. Today we have what we call as pharmacotherapy. We have wonderful drugs that can stop the leakage from these damaged blood vessels, reduce the macular edema, and restore the function. See, macular edema is something, again, I'll use an analogy here. It is something like you keep a piece of wood in water for a long time. The wood gets swollen, it gets weak, and how much ever you dry it later, it will not regain its strength. The earlier you take it out of the water and keep it for drying, the better the chances are that it will regain its strength. Similarly, the retina too behaves similar in a similar manner. So we have the uh, leakage of blood from the blood vessels causing fluid accumulation in the macular area, causing swelling, and this swelling has to be reduced. And this can be reduced by all these drugs that are available in our armamentarium today. We have Accentrix, we have bevacizumab, that is Avastin, we have steroids, we have aflibercept, and these are all the technical names or the names which I think we did not bother at this point of time. But just remember that we have cure, and we can actually improve the vision by using these injections in the eye. The only problem is that the follow-up of these patients is almost every month, if not every, it's every at least once in 6 weeks or 2 months, if not every month. And the treatment is a little expensive. Not only the injections are expensive, it has to be given over a period of time, or say, for example, in the first year of diagnosis, the patient may require at least 5 to 6 injections in the eye. In the second year, he may require a little less, maybe 3 to 4 injections, and in the third year, he may require 1 to 2 injections, and thereafter, for the rest of his life, he will need at least 1 or 2 injections every year in order to control the diabetic macular edema, to sort of stabilize the vision and prevent deterioration. So I just want to show how the injection is given if there is time. So this is, I just want to show this injection being given because many patients imagine that the injection in the eye is very painful. You can see this gentleman lying down so comfortably, and the injection is given with a very, very fine needle, and it is very almost painless. The patient just feels a little stinging for about 5 seconds, and that is all. After that, he is comfortable. So there's not much pain involved in these procedures. About about proliferative diabetic retinopathy, or just give me a second, excuse me. Yeah. So I was talking about stopping bleeding. When we pick up a patient, when we pick up the diagnosis of a patient who is not yet bled, who has not yet had bleeding in the eye, his vision is still good. Laser treatment is something that we can offer to these patients. Laser treatment basically stops the bleeding, prevents further bleeding from the neovascular network, and causes regression of those neovascular network like vessels that I showed you in the slide. So this is an OPD procedure. The purpose of showing this video was to reassure the patients that there is not much of pain or discomfort involved. It is not an operation. It is an outpatient procedure. The patient comes in, gets the treatment done, and goes home, and not more than 1 or 2 sittings is required. Previously, before we had the modern laser, the patient had to be treated or on 4 or 5 occasions. But at present, and in the present day, it is possible to treat these patients just about once or maximum twice. And with this treatment, it is possible to stop the bleeding from all those bleeding points that I showed you, and prevent the major internal bleeding that happens in these patients, causing vision loss. Yeah, KP.
So, Dr. Guru Prasad says that the injections have really showed the way to preserve useful vision whenever there is a swelling of the retina. And they are much more useful and less harmful than the laser treatment that was done in the past. So, just injections can actually reduce the swelling and get back the vision. And in patients in which there is a likelihood of bleed that's going to happen, they're going to apply some laser beam into the eye, which is just a light. It's just an intense light into the eye, so that the retina, there are small laser treatment to the retina, the periphery of the retina, so that we can preserve the vision. I think it's all about preservation of vision and preventing vision loss. That is most important. And that is only possible if the patient comes early to the doctor. When the patients come very late, okay, you probably, the injections will be of less use, the laser treatment will be of less use. If there's already a bleed or multiple bleeds and the vision is grossly reduced, then probably you are reducing your chances of a good visual recovery. But the hope still remains, as per Dr. Guru Prasad, that even for such advanced cases where the patient comes in a very end stage with losing all the vision in diabetes due to diabetic retinopathy, still they have certain things at their disposal. Dr. Guru Prasad, apart from injections and laser, is there a surgery or an operation of the retina that you do in these cases?
Yeah. So, apart from bleeding, what can happen to the retina in diabetic retinopathy is that the new vessels that I showed you, the network of blood vessels that I showed you, sometimes undergo fibrous change. So I want to show a slide to exactly explain what this fibrous change means. So this is the bleeding. This, sorry. One moment, please. Yeah. So this is the fibrous tissue. The network of blood vessels gets associated with fibrous tissue that is uh, uh, produced by the retina, And this combination of fibrous tissue and the blood vessels causes pull on the retina. So the retina gets detached. This is called as traction retinal detachment, and this is a very serious complication of diabetic retinopathy. So that is why it is important. See, this again is an example of the fibrous tissue developing on the surface of the retina, causing a pull of the retina and causing retinal detachment, which can lead to severe and serious vision loss. Sometimes it is very difficult to restore vision in these patients. So the treatment for this is in the form of surgery. So what we do is we have to remove the blood. So when there is bleeding inside the eye, internal bleeding, we have to remove the blood physically by surgery, by operation. So nowadays surgery is very minimally invasive. You can see just like laparoscopy, there are 3 openings made in the eye. This is one opening here, one opening here, and one opening here, through which instruments are passed inside the eye. And under microsurgical visualization, we are able to remove the blood clots when there is simple internal bleeding. So this is the inside view of the retina or the vitreous cavity, where blood has got filled up in front of the retina, blocking the vision. So the blood is being removed with this light source and the cutter used together, so that we can actually visualize what we are cutting. So there is something like laparoscopy, where 3 instruments are passed inside the eye, inside any organ, and the eye is not different. It is just a 0.4 millimeter opening that we make, and we are able to do microsurgically all these maneuvers. So if this is about the blood clot, I show you something about the fibrous tissue removal as well. So in this, the steps are common: making 3 openings and passing 3 instruments, and this is with the help of forceps, the fibrous tissue being removed. The fibrous tissue that has developed in front of the retina, which is causing a pull on the retina and causing a retinal detachment, causing compromise to the vision, is actually handled by forceps and the cutter, and the fibrous tissue is very delicately separated from the retina and removed without jeopardizing the retina. So this is a very skilled maneuver, needs a lot of experience, expertise, and training to begin with. And this is done in a very few centers in the country. So this is the fibrous tissue being removed in order to relieve traction causing retinal detachment. So in the end stages of diabetic retinopathy as well, which are these 2 are the examples: the blood bleeding inside and the fibrous tissue development. It is possible to save vision in many of these patients, and the definition of end stage is getting changed every year because of the advancements in technology, the amount of advancements that have taken place in terms of instrumentation, in terms of equipment, in terms of technique and skill, and the number of centers that are doing it in the present day are all very heartening to know that more and more cases of complicated cases are now being able to are now manageable, and vision is possible to restore in these patients.
Yes, sir. I think that's a very, looks like a miracle that you have gone through a 0.4 millimeter opening into the eye, and you have been able to. Is there a need to put a stitch to these openings, or they're so small that they need a stitch?
Actually, these are sutureless operations. There is just an opening which is half a millimeter or just 0.4 millimeter, and it is created. The opening is created in such a way that when you remove the instruments from these from inside the eye, the tissue closes on its own, and it is stitchless. There's no need to put a stitch in these patients, and it is
How
self-healing.
how many days of hospitalization or how many days of rest the patient has to take?
Actually, these surgeries are also daycare, just like cataract surgery. Even these surgeries can be done on a daycare basis. The patient can come after a medical fitness that he should normally take, because these patients are little, not very healthy. Diabetic patients who have these complications will also have other problems in the heart, in the kidney and so on. And therefore, it's very important that we take a physician's clearance for before surgery. So if assuming that the patient is physically fit, he has no other complication other than the eye, he can come in, walk into the hospital, have the preparations done, get the surgery done. Surgery takes anywhere between 30 minutes to 45 minutes, or sometimes an hour, depending on the complexity. And after surgery, if the patient has other comorbid conditions like heart and kidney problems, he has to stay for about an hour, after which we observe and send the patient back home. Otherwise, if the patient does not have any of these complications, he can just straight away go home and come back next day for a follow-up. So it is basically daycare.
Okay, I think that's very reassuring, and the advances in the present day cataract surgery as well as the vitreoretinal surgeries have probably really been very promising. Sir, actually, we have been told that the diabetes affects every part of the body that I told in the beginning itself. I think the four parts which are most important a diabetic patient should know is the foot. There is the foot care, because problems in the foot can lead to gangrene or loss of sensation, delayed healing of the wounds and things like that. Next is the kidney, where people develop kidney malfunction or disorder, where it's called diabetic nephropathy, where patients may require a dialysis or a kidney transplant. The third is the heart. The heart attacks are more common in diabetic patients. And the fourth one is the diabetic retinopathy that we have been discussing so far. Is there a link between one and another? Can you diagnose whether the kidney is also under problem by just looking at the eye? Is there a link between the kidney problem and the retina problem, sir?
Yeah, I'll just take 2 minutes to answer this question in detail. See, eye is like we already mentioned, we are privileged as ophthalmologists to be able to see the blood vessels in the body. The only place where blood vessels are visible or can be examined in the body is the eye, in the retina. So, when we examine the retina, we are not only able to tell about the health of the eye, we are able to tell about the health of the blood vessels in the rest of the body as well. That includes the brain, heart, kidney, and foot. Heart, brain, and foot are organs where the major vessels or the larger vessels or the highways that I mentioned are involved. That is macroangiopathy, we call it. The eye and kidney are structures or organs where the smaller vessels are affected. That is microangiopathy. Generally, there is a strong correlation between the eye and the kidney in terms of the damage that occurs. If there is nephropathy, there will be retinopathy. If there is retinopathy, there will be nephropathy. So this correlation between the two is very, very strong. And normally we have a lot of patients coming in from the nephrologist and a lot of our patients going to the nephrologist for treatment. Most of these patients of diabetic retinopathy also have swollen feet, they have puffy face. So nephropathy is something that we have to always guide the patient as ophthalmologists for continuing treatment with a nephrologist. And the nephrologist also reciprocates. Whenever he has a patient of nephropathy, he will refer to us for retinopathy. The one important thing I wanted to tell about foot is that the strongest correlation of all the organs that we have affected by diabetes, the strongest correlation is probably with the foot. A patient with a diabetic foot, by diabetic foot I mean a patient who has a wound which is not healing in the feet for a long time in spite of the best treatment, or a gangrene formation, or an amputated foot, or maybe a toe or a ankle, or even the sometimes knee, below the knee or above the knee. So these are the patients who have had blockages of the major arteries of the vessels supplying the foot. Not only that, added to this, there is also a neuropathy, because of which the patient is unable to have a sensation. He's got a loss of sensation of that region, because of which he will not be able to identify, or he will not be able to realize that he has had wounds in the leg, which keep on growing and result in gangrene. And the immunity of a diabetic patient also, I think, is slightly lower, because of which because of all these factors, a patient limb becomes compromised. This diabetic foot, out of 10 people with diabetic feet, 9 of them will have severe retinopathy. So this is, we were talking about correlation. So correlation between diabetic foot and the retinopathy is very, very strong. A patient on a wheelchair in my outpatient, in my waiting room, with diabetes, having come for examination, I can swear that this patient also has retinopathy and that he needs treatment for the retinopathy. So that is the correlation.
Thank you, sir. I think the kidney, the retina, and the foot, all of them are basically have fallen victims to the diabetes. I think that's why we would like to drive home the point once again to our viewers that diabetes is a multi-system disorder. It affects every part of the body, especially the extremities, the foot, kidney, heart, and the eye. And if you are a diabetic who is only worrying about blood sugar levels, getting your blood sugar checked up on your glucometer, going to a lab and getting a blood test, altering your own tablets or injections as per the blood sugar, and not really caring for these changes, then you are actually heading for trouble. So it is not important to just keep your blood sugar under control. It is also important to prevent the target organ complications. I think this is a very important thing. These are the organs, target organs, in which the diabetes plays havoc, especially in the eye. And Dr. Guru Prasad has very firmly, concluded that the eye is a window to the whole body. Whatever changes that we see in the retina are happening in the kidney or happening in the foot, happening in every part of the body. I think so. Going to an eye doctor once in 6 months for changes of diabetes within the retina probably can prevent not only blindness, can also predict the changes in the other organs in the same individual. I think this is probably very, very important. Sir, how do we prevent diabetic retinopathy? If somebody is a diabetic, can you prevent altogether diabetic retinopathy?
Um, there are some patients who, even after 30 years of diabetes, do not develop diabetic retinopathy. I think there is a genetic component also in the causation of diabetic retinopathy. But by and large, most of the patients, after say 10 years, they will have some change in the eye caused by diabetes in the form of a mild retinopathy or the mild hemorrhages that I showed, or the medium-sized hemorrhages or a major hemorrhage. So I think it is difficult to prevent. The only way we can prevent is good control of diabetes. Control of diabetes is very, very important. If you can control your diabetes, you can postpone the onset of diabetic retinopathy. You can reduce the severity of diabetic retinopathy. So these two things are possible. We can't totally say that we will be immune from diabetic retinopathy by use of some medicine or by controlling diabetes well. It can only be postponed and the severity can be reduced. Yeah.
So we have a question actually from one of the patients. They said that they had retinopathy and one advertisement drew them to one place which they don't want to mention the name, and they were assured that giving some treatment for 6 months, maybe some unconventional treatment, supposed to cure the vision. Some eye drops to be put and something to be taken with the ghee for 6 months. And now, I mean, the lady says that she's almost blind due to that. So, what is your take on such, shortcuts, or what we call as the hit and run? There are treatments which are claimed to be miraculous and misguiding the diabetic patients, that they're going to offer a miraculous cure for the problem, and once things don't work out, that they are nowhere to be traced. What is your opinion and what is your experience in this regard, and what is your advice to these patients?
I think, yeah, this is important to address because many patients are falling victim to the advertisements and losing their health and eyesight. See, whatever we do as allopathic specialists, I think we do it based on certain studies. That is, we have evidence. Whatever treatment we give, we have evidence that this treatment works in the form of studies. In fact, the DRS, or the DRS stands for Diabetic Retinopathy Study, conducted way back in the late 70s and early 80s, is one, even today, is one of the best studies, best conducted studies, one of the most scientifically well structured and systematic study that has been done in the field of medicine, not ophthalmology, in the field of entire medicine. And it has been acknowledged by many specialists from other branches of medicine as well. So, such being the case, when our systems, allopathy system, is based on evidence, based on studies, based on research that has been done over many years for a long follow-up, and on a big sample size of say at least 500 patients or 1000 patients. I think the diabetic retinopathy study was a study which enrolled 2000 patients or even more. So such being the case, we just can't say that any other medicine which might have anecdotally worked for some patients will work for everyone. So it might have worked for some patients, and that too by chance, or maybe the diagnosis was wrong. But I think we should not follow or be, blindly follow the advertisements that are there in large numbers in the media, in social media, in the newsprint, in sometimes even on television, about the drops, about the medicines, about the tablets or magic bullets that they claim to cure diabetic retinopathy, because uh, that is not evidence based. It needs a lot of research to say that a particular medicine works, and I think it is wrong to claim. It is definitely wrong to claim that a medicine will work and cure all problems in the eye just for taking for a few days. I think that is my answer in short.
Yes. I think I can't agree more, sir, because it has become a fashion nowadays in the, especially the social media, to kind of disregard the existing scientific approach to the treatment of diseases. And always, whatever is unconventional, whatever looks too simplistic, has been always hailed. And all these people who actually claim these miraculous things, disappear. Okay, they completely into nowhere whenever the things don't work out. So these are typical, I sort of hit and run. They are not there, they are not accountable, and nobody will blame them for their failures. That is their best, advantage. The best, privilege they have is that you are not going to ask them it doesn't work, because as custodians of vision in a scientific format, we are accountable. Whatever we tell, whatever the present day ophthalmologists profess, is basically based on research, based on long term studies, based on our personal acumen and experience also. And we are there to tell what we can't do also. We know our limitations. We can give you statistics about the prognosis and the failure and the success rate. So everything can be really understood. So I think the present day, the probably the take home message. I'll ask Dr. Guru Prasad finally last few sentences about his take home message to the viewers of today's program, sir. So your final take home message for our patients.
So first of all, I would like to say that diabetic treatment of diabetes is not just treatment of blood sugar or normalization of blood sugar. We have to be aware and we have to care for the complications that occur due to diabetes. Self-awareness has to be created. You have to learn from various sources, like iTalks like this, from um, doctors from different walks of life. And um, complications is one thing that we can definitely avoid by not just looking at the sugar levels and trying to control the diabetes, because patients say that they are well controlled. They are sometimes they look at us with anger and say, "Oh, sir, what are you talking? I have controlled my diabetes. Not even one day my sugar has gone up. Yet you say that I have diabetic retinopathy." So that is not just. I said in one of my analogies that it is like a garden pipe. The duration of diabetes is also important. However much you control your diabetes, the duration of diabetes, the duration for which the pipe has been in the sun, in the wind, in the open, will determine how how the damage can occur. So damage can occur because of just duration of diabetes. ABCD is something that I like to tell to all my patients. A is for average blood sugar, B is for the blood pressure control, which every diabetic, if he has to control. C is for the cholesterol control, if he has hyperlipidemia. D is the duration of diabetes. So D is something we can't address, but A, B, C definitely we can address. We can reduce the blood sugar, we can reduce the BP, we can control the sugar cholesterol content. One thing. Secondly, every year examination is very, very important once you know that you're diabetic, because what is happening inside the eye, I said even the late stages of diabetic retinopathy, vision can be good. So vision is not an indicator of the stage of diabetic retinopathy. You can have severe diabetic retinopathy, almost leading to blindness, maybe the next day or in the next week or in the next month, the patient can have a severe bleed requiring major treatment. So that is happening inside, and the patient will not come to know unless he goes blind, unless the bomb explodes. The presence of the bomb will not be felt, and that is the reason why a timely examination is very, very important. Regular follow-ups are very, very important. And thirdly, I would like to just say that uh, uh, if you are diabetic and if you need glasses, please don't go to an optometrist or an optician just to take glasses, because the optician will not be able to diagnose your diabetic retinopathy. He will only give you the optical correction or the refractive change that is necessary, refractive glasses that is necessary for you to have a clear vision, and he has no idea about what is happening inside the eye. So a comprehensive eye examination is important. So, this is, I think, these are three messages that I would like to convey before I stop.
Thank you, sir. I think that was quite illuminating and informative. I think as a parting shot, so would like to thank all our viewers of iTalk, which has been presented from the M.M. Joshi Eye Institute group of hospitals. I think diabetes is so common. I think it's a lifestyle disease. It is not too simplistic. I think let's not trivialize or oversimplify the treatment of diabetes. The basic tenets remain that you need to actually, look at your diet, have a healthy, balanced diet for a diabetic, and be physically active. I think regular exercise is very important. Keeping a calm mind and not coming under stress is very important to blood sugar level. And the first most important thing is look at the target organs, the foot, the kidney, heart, and the eye, which fall victim to diabetes. I think just not looking at the blood sugar, looking into what is happening to these. And all these four problems are preventable. That's what I said in the beginning, that diabetic retinopathy blindness is a needless blindness. You need not become blind due to this if you take proper care. So stay safe, stay healthy, and let us eliminate this needless blindness. Thank you once again for joining, and greetings from MM Joshi Eye Institute once again.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you.